Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Recovery Classroom. My name is Drew. I am an alcoholic, and today I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I cannot be any more grateful. I want to talk about meetings today. In 2013, I might have had a problem with alcoholism. Maybe. I didn't know. So I said, okay, let me go check out these meetings. Logically, rationally, anybody would say, okay, let's go to the meetings that are closest to where we live, right? And so that's what I started doing. I started attending meetings that were in my immediate community, in my small little town that I live in. That was where I formed this idea that these folks are brainwashed. It's a cult. I want nothing to do with the cult. They talked about God. These were smaller meetings, and with the smaller meetings, they didn't always have people talking. There were sustained periods of silence in those meetings. And then if anybody's been in one of those meetings where nobody's talking, you know how nerve-wracking it can be. So I split. I said, nope, this is not for me. Back out the door, man. Truth be told, I just wasn't ready to stop drinking at the time. Fortunately, I made it back. I was one of the lucky ones. I made it back, albeit 8 years later. By 2021, it was no longer a question. It wasn't I might have a problem. It was I did have a problem. And so it made sense in my head to at least hang out with people who had figured out how to solve their drinking problem. The only place I could talk to those people were at these meetings. Again, in my hometown, in my little community. I didn't want to sign up for no membership card. I didn't want to be part of the cult. Didn't want to be brainwashed, although my brain probably did need washing. I didn't want to be a part of it. But at least it made sense to hang out with people who had solved their drinking problem. Maybe they could help me solve mine. After all, doesn't it make sense if I want to be rich, I hang out with maybe a banker or a Wall Street broker? Maybe people who are financially successful. Yeah. If you want to learn how to fix cars, don't you hang out with people who know how to fix cars? That's what I did. So, okay, fine. And so again, my first 25, 30 days, I was kind of floating across these rooms in my hometown. Again, it makes rational sense. These were in my community. I knew better, but it's like in my brain, I thought that these were the only meetings that existed. I knew there were other meetings outside, and maybe in the neighboring community over there, or the neighboring community over there, but these were close, so it just made sense to go to these meetings. And I remember asking myself, how am I going to sustain this? How am I going to sustain this? See, the problem with all of this was, I didn't know I wasn't connected. Matter of fact, I didn't know I was supposed to connect to anything at all. I just wasn't connected at all to the fellowship because I just didn't know. In all fairness, full disclosure, again, I'm less than 30 days in, so I probably still had a lot of alcohol in my brain. So I stayed in my little protective, safe, convenient bubble of meetings until one day, I stepped outside of my bubble. See, my routine was disrupted, and one day I was planning on going to one meeting, but I ended up going to another. And when I went to this other meeting I had not planned on going to, but it was by accident, it was in a neighboring community, that's where I realized I'm missing something here. I'm missing something. And that's where I started forming a connection with the fellowship. That's where I started forming a connection with other people. And now, in all fairness, that's when the alcohol was probably coming out of my brain too. But that's whenever I realized that there was something more than just stinking meetings. I want to encourage you. Get to as many meetings as possible. Step outside of your meeting bubble. I have a routine of meetings now, and every so often I'll still step outside and go try a different meeting, or go to a meeting I used to go to see if it's changed. Step outside of your meeting bubble. I remember my first sponsor told me, he said, I want you to go to as many meetings as possible, as many different types of meetings as possible, even if I don't go with you. He said it's important that you go and you get as many different viewpoints and perspectives as you possibly can, even if it requires you to drive maybe an extra 5 or 10 minutes. Go to as many different meetings as possible, because that could be the very meeting that you walk into where you get your miracle that you've been looking for. I had one of my sponsees told me once, he called me and he said, I'm thinking about going to check out this meeting. And I told him, I was like, oh, that sounds great. And I shared my personal experience with him. It wasn't a bad meeting. I don't believe in bad meetings, but I didn't get as much out of that meeting as what I'd hoped. And he was like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't go. I said, no, I think you should go. I absolutely think you should go. 100%. Think you should go. And he was like, why? And I was like, because that may be the meeting where that you walk into, although it didn't happen to me, it may be the very meeting you walk into where you start feeding that fire. You start fueling that fire for recovery. And he said, oh, okay. And he went and he liked it. I don't think he visits there a whole lot anymore, but sometimes I think he does, but that's okay. I would never tell someone to not go to a meeting. As a matter of fact, to the quite opposite, I'm going to tell you, you need to get to as many meetings as possible. Yes, you want to get your routine, you want to get a schedule of meetings down, but don't be afraid to periodically step outside of that meeting bubble so you can go and see other people, meet other people, and hear their experiences, because that's just going to be that much more knowledge and insight that you gain for your own personal recovery. So I hope that helps. I hope that encourages you. Again, try out as many different meetings as possible. Stick to your normal routine, stick to your normal meeting schedule, but don't be afraid to step outside of your meeting bubble, step outside of your comfort zone. And to that very point, I want to drop a quick note. We have a new person, a new friend of ours, that she is finally stepping outside of her comfort zone, and I have watched this girl grow in her sobriety and her recovery, and man, she is hell on wheels, and I'm so excited for her. She's going to be dropping her very first monologue on the Recovery Classroom today, so it's going to be followed right back by this monologue. It's going to follow this monologue, I should say. So I want to welcome Deb to the Recovery Classroom Facebook page. She's been on here for the longest time. Don't let me fool you. She's been on here for a while, but she's going to be dropping her very first monologue. This is her stepping out of her comfort zone. So Deb, we're thankful and just so proud of you for doing this. I know this is a big deal, so we just want to say thank you. Guys, that's all the time for me this morning. Thank you guys for letting me come in and share 5 to 10 minutes of your day with you. You guys absolutely keep me sober, and I cannot be any more appreciative. We'll be talking again soon. Remember, guys, you can't get drunk if you don't take that first drink.